Beware. Have you ever wondered if someone around you is silently sabotaging your life? Many manipulative people hide their true intentions behind smiles and kind words. In today's video, I'll show you 9 signs that you may be living with a malevolent person. Someone who thrives on the suffering of others, wants to control your every move, and distorts the truth to the point that you start doubting yourself. Recognizing these behaviors could be the key to protecting yourself and finding peace. Ready to uncover the truth? It's hard to imagine that someone could find joy in another person's pain, but unfortunately, some people take delight in witnessing the suffering of others. They exploit moments of weakness and vulnerability to exert a form of emotional power, showing zero empathy in the process. Have you ever noticed someone smile while recounting a personal problem? This behavior reveals a sadistic pleasure that goes beyond mere insensitivity. It's as if they find validation in having emotional control over others. It's not uncommon to see such people in family gatherings or work settings, overshadowing someone's achievements by sharing sad and discouraging stories, filling the atmosphere with negativity. They don't just do this intentionally, but also use others' suffering as a way to feel superior, putting others down to stand out. This dynamic is subtle and often hard to identify, as it's typically masked by sarcastic comments or harmless jokes. It manifests through inappropriate laughter during serious moments, reinforcing a cycle of emotional manipulation that can destroy the self-esteem of anyone targeted by this type of cruelty. To handle these situations, it's crucial to stay vigilant and not allow these behaviors to impact your sense of self-worth. In more extreme cases, distancing yourself from these individuals is an act of self-preservation. Imagine being surrounded by people who seem to mock your deepest feelings and laugh when you express frustration or sadness. This kind of behavior even surfaces in small, everyday situations, like someone laughing when they see a person trip in the street. It may seem harmless, but it reflects a cruel pattern of behavior where someone else's suffering or embarrassment becomes a source of entertainment. If you notice this in someone close to you, know that this is just the first sign of a more problematic behavior, usually accompanied by an intense desire for control, which leads us to the next point: how these people seek to manipulate everything around them to keep power in their hands. Ill-intentioned individuals often have an uncontrollable urge to dominate other people's lives, shaping their actions according to their own interests. They don't just suggest things, they dictate behaviors and decisions, emotionally trapping everyone around them. At work, they might be bosses who never give autonomy to their subordinates, imposing absurd rules and goals to keep everyone under control. In relationships, control manifests in more subtle ways, such as excessive jealousy, psychological manipulation, or even monitoring social media. The message is clear: these people cannot stand seeing others move freely. This control usually starts subtly with comments like, "I just want what's best for you," but quickly escalates into toxic behaviors such as disregarding others' opinions and direct attacks on self-esteem. They use techniques that, at first, might seem like signs of concern or even affection. It's that person who, even without having any direct responsibility, wants to know where you've been, who you talked to, and why you took so long to reply. Sometimes, it appears as emotional blackmail, where they threaten to withdraw or create a tense atmosphere to make you comply with their whims. Recognizing these behaviors early is crucial to avoid falling into a cycle of manipulation. No matter how much they try to justify their desire for control with emotional arguments or promises of protection, the truth is that these people are only reaffirming their own power. The effect is devastating. Those who suffer from this type of manipulation end up losing confidence in themselves, believing that they depend on these figures to make decisions, or, worse yet, that they don't deserve freedom. A classic example is the controlling friend, who tries to decide your friendships, hobbies, and even how you should dress. The key to escaping this web is to re-establish clear boundaries and understand that no one has the right to dictate your life. And once you notice the negative force of this influence, you start to see how it affects your emotional state, something that directly leads to the next topic. Have you ever walked into a room and felt an inexplicable discomfort, like there was something heavy in the air? That feeling could be a reflection of the negative vibrations emitted by ill-intentioned people. Even without direct words or actions, they can influence the atmosphere around them, projecting emotions like anger, envy, or contempt. You might feel chills, a sense of unease, or even a sudden urge to leave that place. These signals indicate that the energy around you is being contaminated, and the impact is real. Your body reacts to these vibrations, increasing stress and anxiety levels, which directly affect your mental and emotional health. Learning to identify these sensations is the first step in protecting yourself. Individuals who radiate negative vibes often carry unresolved suffering and frustrations within themselves, which spill over in the form of manipulation and control over others. This doesn't mean you should condone their behavior, but it's essential to understand that their toxic emotions can drain your vital energy. Empathy, in this case, doesn't mean accepting their behavior. It means distancing yourself to preserve your own inner peace. If the presence of these people is unavoidable, like in the workplace or social circles, an alternative is to create an energetic shield, focusing on positive thoughts and keeping your attention on something that brings you joy, like relaxing music or memories of happy moments. You can also adopt practical strategies to deal with this toxicity. For instance, when you sense someone is filling the environment with negative vibrations, try redirecting the conversation to neutral or positive topics, or, if possible, limit the time you spend interacting with them. If you can't avoid their presence, engage in activities that recharge your energy, like meditation, nature walks, or even a soothing bath. Remember that you have control over the emotions you absorb, which is crucial to prevent these influences from undermining your self-esteem and well-being. And often these people not only transmit negative vibes, but also refuse to take any responsibility for their own behavior. Leading us to the next point, how they avoid responsibility and always blame others. Ill-intentioned people have an almost theatrical ability to escape their responsibilities, always blaming someone or some external circumstance for their failures. It's never their fault, it's always someone else's. If something goes wrong at work, it's because so-and-so didn't cooperate. If a relationship ends, it's because the other person didn't understand. And so life goes on, full of excuses and justifications that absolve them of any guilt. This behavior isn't just frustrating for those around them, but it also creates an environment of distrust and resentment. When confronted, they defend themselves with lies or distort facts, making the victim feel responsible for the chaos they caused. This strategy of shifting the blame generates a cycle of emotional manipulation. The person on the receiving end often starts to question their own sanity or competence, believing they may have genuinely contributed to the negative situation. This happens in abusive relationships, where the victim is led to believe that their actions triggered the aggression or emotional abuse. One way to recognize this behavior is by observing if the person never apologizes for their actions, or if their apologies are always followed by a but. That shifts the focus away from the problem. This kind of manipulation, though subtle, is devastating, undermining confidence and self-esteem. The main issue is that by avoiding responsibility, these people turn coexistence into something toxic. When they are in leadership positions, the team feels undervalued and demotivated because they know any failure will be blamed on them, while any success will be claimed by the leader. One way to address this is by setting clear boundaries and demanding clarity in dialogues and actions, using logic and facts to dismantle any manipulation attempts. And, just as they avoid any responsibility, these individuals often display another recurring behavior, the habit of lying to distort reality and control those around them, which is precisely the next topic we'll dive into. Ill-intentioned individuals often use lies as a tool for control, distorting the truth to manipulate how others perceive them. Their lies go beyond small falsehoods to get out of embarrassing situations. These are calculated deceptions designed to confuse and control those around them. A classic example is when someone, in order to hide their own shortcomings, invents stories that demonize others, shifting the blame for their mistakes onto third parties. This practice erodes the trust of everyone involved, making it impossible to distinguish what's real from what's manipulation. When confronted, they tend to change the subject, feign surprise, or play the victim to avoid being exposed. This behavior is especially destructive in close relationships, such as friendships and romantic partnerships. The compulsive liar often weaves a web of false narratives, controlling the other person's perception of reality and using distorted facts to gain sympathy and justify inappropriate behavior. Those who live with these individuals fall into a cycle of doubt and suspicion. The victim starts questioning their own memories and experiences, unsure whether they're seeing the situation clearly. A simple example is when someone lies about financial commitments to hide excessive spending, creating a chasm of distrust that, once formed, is difficult to bridge. To deal with this type of behavior, it's crucial to keep a record of facts, situations, and even conversations. Having concrete evidence prevents the person from distorting reality further. Another important point is to avoid getting into prolonged arguments trying to prove that the person is lying. The natural response of a liar is to play the victim or accuse the other of going crazy. Instead, stand your ground, knowing that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the foundation of any healthy relationship. The habit of lying is often linked to a complete lack of remorse, which leads us to the next point: the absence of guilt, even when they cause great harm. One of the most striking characteristics of ill-intentioned people is their total lack of remorse. They don't feel guilt or regret, even when their actions cause suffering or destruction. This behavior can be shocking to those who are used to putting themselves in others' shoes, as these individuals seem unaffected by the consequences of their actions. When confronted, they offer empty excuses or, even worse, justify their actions as if they were deserved or inevitable. Imagine someone who steals an idea at work and, when caught, coldly states that the person who had the idea should have protected it better. This is the level of disregard for others' emotions they display. This behavior is even more dangerous because these people don't see their actions as wrong. There's no room in their emotional repertoire for remorse or guilt, making them especially likely to repeat the same harmful behaviors. One way to identify this is by observing how they react when confronted. If, instead of showing regret, they go on the offensive, manipulating the situation to absolve themselves of any responsibility, that's a major red flag. In everyday life, this may manifest as phrases like, "You're too sensitive," or "That's all in your head," shifting the focus to the victim's reactions rather than the damage caused. Dealing with people who lack remorse requires firmness and the ability to emotionally distance yourself. Don't expect a sincere apology or genuine regret. What they offer at most are pragmatic excuses aimed at regaining control of the situation. It's common for them, when pressured, to try to turn the tables with aggression, creating a scenario of fear and intimidation. The absence of guilt is a trait that often accompanies more intense and aggressive behaviors like the ones we'll discuss in the next topic. When we talk about cruelty and aggression, we're referring to behaviors that go beyond words, intentional actions meant to inflict pain and suffering, whether physical or emotional. Ill-intentioned people often resort to these behaviors when their manipulation tactics and lies are no longer effective. They shift from a hidden stance of control to open aggression, which can include public humiliation, verbal abuse, or even physical violence. An example is the boss who, when faced with criticism, resorts to yelling and threats to emotionally destabilize subordinates. At home, this aggression might manifest as slamming doors, breaking objects, or even using silence as a means to punish the other person. This type of cruelty isn't a spontaneous outburst of anger. It's calculated and executed with precision to achieve maximum impact. They identify the weaknesses and insecurities of others and use them as ammunition. Imagine a romantic partner who, instead of discussing the relationship in a healthy manner, starts belittling the other's physical appearance or intellectual abilities. This is not just a way to divert attention from the real issue, but also a method of destroying self-esteem and keeping the victim submissive. It's important to remember that in many cases, these behaviors are cyclical. followed by periods of apparent calm, where the person acts as if nothing happened, reinforcing the idea that the problem was exaggerated or imagined. The best way to handle this type of aggression is not to retaliate and instead seek support from trusted people or professionals. Creating a plan of action, which can include gathering evidence or setting up a safe escape environment, is essential to avoid falling into the cycle of abuse. Avoiding the presence of these people is always the best option, but when that's not possible, staying calm and not giving in to provocations is crucial. Just like the lack of remorse, cruelty and aggression are often accompanied by a behavioral pattern already noticed by others around. Leading us to the next topic: the warnings from friends and family about someone's character. When friends or family members raise a red flag about someone's behavior, it's essential to pay attention. Often, we're so immersed in a relationship or situation that we can't clearly see what's happening around us. Those on the outside, however, have a more objective perspective and can identify toxic behaviors and subtle manipulations that you might not notice. If the people close to you repeatedly express concern about someone in your circle, whether it's a friend, partner, or coworker, it's a sign that something is wrong. Don't ignore these warnings, because in most cases, they come from real experiences others have had with that person. These alerts usually come in the form of subtle comments like, "I don't think they're the right person for you," or, "Be careful, so-and-so has had problems at their previous job." At other times, they're more like cries for help, such as when a friend says, "Please, don't get involved with that person anymore." This type of advice, though difficult to hear, is an act of empathy and love. Sometimes those trapped in a web of manipulation can't see the severity of the situation, and people around them end up distancing themselves out of frustration, feeling that their warnings aren't being taken seriously. Therefore, it's crucial to learn how to distinguish between genuine concern and unfounded criticism. Reflect on the behaviors that prompted these warnings and, if necessary, seek the opinion of more than one person. When multiple voices agree on a point, it's likely that there's some truth behind it. This kind of warning doesn't appear out of nowhere, and ignoring it can lead to unnecessary suffering and toxic relationships that undermine your self-esteem and security. And often, the disdain and criticism towards your life choices are clear manifestations of harmful behavior, which is exactly what we'll discuss in the next topic. Ill-intentioned people often show contempt for others' achievements, dreams, and interests. They minimize any victory that isn't theirs, belittle projects, and mock others' ambitions, leaving you with the feeling that nothing you do is ever good enough. It's the type of person who, when you share a personal accomplishment, responds with an ironic smile or a comment like, "Anyone could have done that." This behavior is corrosive because it demotivates and makes the person on the receiving end question the value of their own actions. In an environment where contempt is constant, personal and professional growth becomes a daunting challenge. This contempt can manifest in various ways, from direct criticism to sarcastic little jokes that devalue the other person's worth. Imagine someone who, when seeing a friend get a promotion, instead of congratulating them, replies with, "That's just because the boss likes you." The goal isn't just to diminish the achievement, but to create doubts and insecurities. This type of behavior is a clear sign of insecurity and a need to feel superior, using emotional control to put others down. That's why it's crucial not to internalize this contempt, and instead remind yourself that your achievements are valid, regardless of what others think. To deal with people who show this kind of disdain, the first step is to understand that their opinion doesn't reflect the truth about you. It's more a projection of their own frustrations and insecurities than a fair judgment. Limiting exposure to these comments and focusing on the support of people who genuinely value your accomplishments is an effective way to protect yourself emotionally. In extreme cases, distancing yourself might be the only viable option to preserve your mental health. And just like contempt, cruelty towards more defenseless beings, such as animals, is another clear sign of disturbing behavior, which we'll explore in the next topic about animal abuse. Animal abuse is a clear indication of a deep lack of empathy and a predisposition towards cruelty. Individuals who take pleasure in mistreating defenseless beings reveal much more about their character than any words they could say. Typically, these acts aren't just bursts of anger, but systematic behaviors that indicate an absence of moral and emotional awareness. It's common to see such cases start discreetly, like locking up an animal or yelling at it, then escalate to more severe forms of physical abuse. People who exhibit this kind of behavior often tend to be aggressive and disrespectful in their relationships with humans as well. This cruel and abusive behavior is often linked to broader patterns of violence and manipulation. Studies show that many animal abusers also exhibit abusive behaviors towards their families and partners. If you notice someone treating animals with brutality or disdain, this is a strong indication that the person has the potential to exert violence and control in other areas of life as well. The excuse of, "it was just a joke" or "it's just an animal" should not be tolerated. Such attitudes are clear indicators of toxicity and a potential to cause suffering to both animals and humans around them. Protecting yourself from such people involves not only avoiding contact, but also being mindful of your social circle. Surrounding yourself with individuals who respect and show empathy for all forms of life is essential to maintaining an environment of peace and mutual respect. If you witness abusive behavior, it's important to act, report it, and don't remain silent in the face of cruelty. People who don't respect an animal's life will rarely respect human life. These signs must be taken seriously, as they are just the tip of the iceberg of much more complex and disturbing behavior. With this, we conclude the topics. I will now proceed to create an introduction that will provide a broad and impactful context for the video, opening up the discussion on all these signs. So how many of these signs have you noticed around you? Don't be fooled by sweet words or empty promises. When someone displays such toxic and cruel behaviors, the best thing you can do for yourself is to distance yourself and regain your emotional balance. Life is too short to allow ill-intentioned people to manipulate and control you. So take an honest look. Who really deserves to be by your side? Who is contributing to your well-being, and who is just draining your energy? Remember, you have the power to choose who you share your life with. And if this video helped you see things more clearly, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this content. Let's spread more knowledge and protection against people like these. See you in the next video.